So we will begin by asking the question, what are channels in Photoshop? Well, a channel is essentially a mask that allows a certain color light to pass through it to ultimately create a full color image. Now, the most common color space used in Photoshop is the RGB color space, and this refers to red, green, and blue light. Now, what that refers to is if you were to take a magnifying glass to your screen and really look up close to it, you would actually see this eventually. Your screen is actually made up of thousands of these little instances of red, green, and blue light. And what happens is that there's so many of them and they get so small, and your eye combines these ultimately to create your full color image. Now, what channels do is actually determines the amount of these red, green, and blue lights is going to be visible. Now, in a Photoshop document, if you go and open up the channels palette, it's grouped with the layers panel, and it's also under the window menu down here for channels. You will actually see a number of different things going on here. Now, these two down here are actually extras I added on after the fact, but what you will normally see in a document is the RGB composite channel and the red, green, and blue channels here. These break down each color mask, basically. So you can see that the red channel shows what all the red elements are comprised of, green channel shows all the green, and blue, all the blue elements. Now, by default, these channels are in black and white. For editing images and purposes such like that, this actually works really well, but if you really wanted to see what was really going on, you can go into the interface preferences, and here in the options, you can actually tell Photoshop to show channels in color. And when I check that on and click OK, now you can see each channel is in full color. And where it is showing the most of that color, like for instance here in this middle glass, there is more of the red coming through, and where it's dark, there is less of the red showing through. So in black areas, there's no red showing at all, so it's not allowing any red through. And then where it's it gets a little darker red, that's actually letting some of the red through, and where it gets really, really bright red, there's all the red coming through. And again, with the green and blue channels, now these ultimately mix to create your full color image by varying the amount of red, green, and blue pixels that go through in different areas. When these mix all together into the RGB composite channel, ultimately create your full color image. That is the essential function of channels here inside Photoshop. But they have other functions as well, and we're going to talk about those throughout this course. One of those being to house Pantone spot color channels, as well as alpha channels, which are ways of storing and altering selections inside of Photoshop. So we're just going to kind of move through all these different elements as we go through this course, but just wanted to give you a really kind of a basic idea of what channels are and how they function here inside Photoshop.